It's funny because if you talk to kids about animals, their first thought in the city is cats and dogs. And so then you have to kind of talk about them, but really our interest is in wildlife rather than domestic animals. And children then think about kind of big mammals, which are quite hard to see, not just in the city, but anywhere. And even something like a fox, for a child, you don't often get to see them because they're nocturnal. So very few kids have even seen a fox. We do see rabbits, but really close to the city, which is great. And if we don't see a rabbit, because the children are quite noisy, then we do see the evidence of a rabbit, because we'll see rabbit droppings and we can see the burrows and we can have a look at where the rabbits have been. But what's really nice is then to help the children realise that animals aren't just furry things. They come in all shapes and sizes, and I suppose birds are really accessible, but not so much in the actual concrete part of the city. You might hear them, and there's the odd tree, and it's only when you get into the green spaces that you really start hearing the birds and seeing them. And today, whenever the sun came out, the birds started really singing and chattering. And we saw a few birds fluttering around, and spring's a great time because then you can see birds with little twigs and sticks in their beaks, and then you can have a chat about nesting and what the birds are all up to. It is interesting because children don't get to hold and have these encounters or hold animals, and it's not just the kids but the parents too. And it's lovely when you find a ladybird because they're very easy they'll very naturally crawl from one hand to another hand, and you can pass a ladybird around. And obviously I tend to start with the children, but you often find that the parents want to join it too. And they're like, oh, can I hold the ladybird as well? And you're like, sure, and you realise actually a lot of parents haven't had that experience either. And so it's nice that it becomes a family thing, and you overcome a lot of fears that children have about wildlife by actually allowing them to touch it and pass it on. And I had a little boy at school yesterday who was terrified about holding a worm, and he watched everybody else hold it and still wouldn't hold it. And then just at the end of the day, we were just looking in some vegetable beds and digging a little bit, and we found a worm. And he'd obviously spent half an hour thinking about and processing this idea that everybody else had held the worm and he hadn't. And as soon as we found it, he said, can I hold the worm? And picked it up, found it somewhere else to live, found some food to it because we all learnt that they like to eat dead leaves. And then at the end of the day, when we asked everybody what their favourite thing was, he said it was holding a worm for the first time. And it's lovely to go out into the wider nature, into Scotland and find deers and bigger animals, but actually it's just as fun making friends with a worm when you're little. It's nice to know that big animals like that do turn up. Wildlife that's more rare in the city, it's just a little bit harder to find.
We've seen lots of bugs, like the millipede we just saw.
Slugs, snails, bees. Oh no, that's that.
And we've seen lots of plants.
Yeah.
We've learned about plants, like that what is it called?
Chickpea. Chickweed.
Yeah, chickweed.
Have you been holding any of the bugs?
I held the millipede.
Same. It kind of tickles.